What's up, everyone? It's Zach Lesage from the Rare Candy channel, and thank you for joining us back here today. We're going over the continuous series that I have that's looking at kind of staple cards or specific cards in our new post-rotation format that we're going to experience in August. So for those of you who don't know, Pokemon.com released an article going over the Pokemon rotation for 2020. So mid-August, there's going to be a rotation that's going to rotate out cards from Sun and Moon all the way up till, I believe, Crimson Invasion. So basically our new format's going to be Ultra Prism on. So that right now it's including Ultra Prism to Unbroken Bonds, and soon we're going to release Unified Minds into that metagame. So in this video, we're going to be going over some of the control cards that we have in our format, specifically looking at the trainer cards that we have here. So these are a combination of cards that can control, disrupt, kind of annoy your opponent in the process. So if you're trying to build a deck, or if you're looking for a card that kind of controls what your opponent's doing, or stops them from doing a specific function, this would be the list of cards that you would want to see. So starting out the video, I don't want to waste your time. We're going to go into Chip Axe. So you look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, choose one of them, your opponent shuffles the other cards back into their deck, then you put a card you chose on top of your deck. So you control your opponent's top decks by choosing one of the top 3 cards. Maybe it's an energy card and they don't need one. Maybe it's just kind of a Pokemon card that they already have all their cards out in play. So this would be a great way to stop your opponent from drawing cards that they potentially can use against you, especially if you have other ways to control it. Next up, we got Crushing Hammer. So you might be looking at this card and being like, yo, Zach, what up? This card's from Sun and Moon. Well, joke's on you. The card actually got reprinted as a full art card, or as a golden trainer card in one of the newer sets, so it's still in our format. You get to flip a coin of heads, discard an energy card from one of your opponent's Pokemon. So it's a great way to stop your opponent from having a lot of energy in play and actually stopping them from getting energies in play from doing their attacks. So Crushing Hammer has always been a staple. Glad to have it still in our format, or I guess maybe I'm not glad because it's really annoying when my opponent plays Crushing Hammer against me. Dangerous Drill. So you can only play this card if you discard a dark Pokemon from your hand. So keep that in mind. It's not for every deck. It's really for dark decks or decks that you could discard a dark Pokemon easily from your hand. So you can discard a Pokemon tool or a special energy card from one of your opponent's Pokemon, or you can discard any stadium card. So it's a little bit of a disruption card, but keep your mind out there. We don't have Field Blower in this format, and it's limited ways to take away special energies and discarding stadiums. So Dangerous Drill might be a great card for you to play in your deck. Peaking Red card. Similar to Crushing Hammer, this card got reprinted as a full art or golden trainer card in one of the newer sets, so we do have Peaking Red card available in our format. Your opponent reveals their hand. You may have your opponent count the cards in their hand and shuffle that back. So maybe your opponent's sitting on there with that busted hand, and you're like, nah, bro, you're going to send that back, or no, you're going to send that back. Whatever. Peaking Red card could be played in a control deck, and I think it's a cool card just to have in our format, especially with it supposed to being rotated, but with the reprint helping it stay in format. We got Wait and See Hammer, so you can only use this card if you go second and only on your first turn. So basically, your opponent has to start off the game, and you can have this card in your hand going second. If they attach an energy, you can discard an energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon, regardless if it's special or if it's a basic energy. So one of the few ways to discard special energies in our format, and even more so discarding energies in general. If you're trying to discard energies from your opponent's deck, you can tell your opponent, if you won the coin flip, that you're going to go second and use Wait and See Hammer to stop them from playing cards. Black Market Prism Star. So this card is mainly seen play in dark decks, and basically the reason why is because when a dark Pokemon, yours or your opponent that has any dark energy attached to it, is knocked out by damage, your opponent takes one less prize card. It's really hard to get Black Market Prism Star out of play because even cards that we just went over, such as Dangerous Drill, cannot discard this card from play. You can really just stop your opponent from drawing a lot of prize cards, especially if they don't play any stadiums, or if they have limited ways to get rid of Black Market Prism Star, or if they have limited stadiums in their deck. Black Market Prism Star might stop your opponent from drawing prize cards at all, and I've definitely played games where my opponent has knocked out 3, 4, 5 of my Pokemon, and they have not been able to draw any prize cards. That's about as controlling as you can get in Pokemon. Lavender Town. So once during your turn, or each player's turn that is, because your opponent can use this effect too, but a lot of them forget it, that player may have their opponent reveal their hand. So maybe you want to see what they have before you play a card such as Peaking Red card, or maybe you want to play it before you play another card. Lavender Town is a great way to determine what's in your opponent's hand before you try to control them any further. Got Lysander Labs. This is one of the only ways to stop Pokemon tool cards in play, so if you see a lot of Shedinjas in play, or pesky cards such as Spell Tag, it just stops them from having any effect. So keep that in mind. If you do have any Pokemon tools in your deck, it will stop them as well, but it is a great way to stop your opponent from using the effects of their Pokemon tool cards. Next up, we got Power Plant. So you're going to stop your opponent's Pokemon GX. For the sake of this video, there's no Pokemon EX in our current metagame or format. So Pokemon GX, you can stop them from using abilities. It's a great way, especially if your opponent has cards such as Dedenne GX or Persian GX or any other abilities that they might have on their GX Pokemon that are a little bit more uncommon. Power Plant's going to stop them right away so that they can't use them. Wondrous Labyrinth. So similar to Black Market Prism Star, this is a Prism Star Stadium, so it's a little bit more difficult to take out of play. You could stop the attacks of non-fairy Pokemon a little bit by making them cost colorless more. Considering fairy's not a very popular type, or especially if you're running this in a fairy type deck, or your deck can have a lot of energies in play, such as Pikachu Zekrom GX, you could make your opponent's energies cost one more. So that might prevent them from attacking, and that's a solid way of controlling your opponent's Pokemon. Cyrus Prism Star. So you can only play this card if your active Pokemon is a water or a metal type Pokemon. Don't necessarily have to be playing either of those types of decks. Jirachi would work really well with this card, especially since Jirachi can search this card out. Your opponent chooses 2 of their bench Pokemon and shuffles all of the other cards into their bench into their deck. So especially if your opponent has a full bench with fully powered up Pokemon, a Meganium Swampert type deck would have a lot of Pokemon on their bench. Cyrus Prism Star can stop that in the process, and they only choose their 2 ones that they want to keep. All the others are gone. Faba. So again, one of the only ways to remove Pokemon tools, special energies, or stadiums in play, you can move it right to the Lost Zone. Now this is a supporter, so it's a little bit of a hefty drawback to play this card, but you do remove it out of play forever for the rest of the game. So keep your mind open to Faba if there's Pokemon tools, special energies, or stadiums that are really bogging your deck down. Hiker. So you get to look at the top 5 cards of any player's deck, but usually want to play this to your opponent's against your opponent. That player shuffles the other cards back into their deck and put the card you chose on top of their deck. So it's a little bit like Chip Axe, but it's a drawback is it's a supporter, but its plus is you could use it on either yourself or your opponent, and it's the top 5 cards. So maybe they have some really bad cards within the top 5 cards, maybe not just the top 3. You can use this in combination with other cards to control what your opponent does during the game. Judge. So a simple way to stop your opponent from doing things is shuffling their hand back into their deck. They do draw 4 cards, but as we saw in the last format, with Let Loose being very popular, Judge is a great way to shuffle your opponent's hand back into their deck, especially if they have a large hand or you know they have the good stuff hiding away in it. So you can use this card to promptly disrupt your opponent. Lysander Prism Star. So for each of your fire Pokemon in play, put a card from your opponent's discard pile into their Lost Zone. So especially if you're playing against decks such as Malamar that kind of want to have a lot of psychic energy in the discard pile to power up with Malamar onto their bench, if you're playing a fire type deck or a lot of fire type Pokemon that you have in play, you could put cards from your opponent's discard pile into their Lost Zone and just send them away forever. Next up, we got Mars. So you might look at this card and be like, ewing, draw 2 cards is disgusting. That's awful, Zach. I'd rather play how? Well, you got to look at the second part. Discard a random card from your opponent's hand. Discarding cards from your opponent's hand is almost as good as discarding cards from your opponent's deck because you're still discarding cards. This could be a great way to discard some of your opponent's resources or try to deck them out. So Mars is a staple in control decks. Next up, we got Morty. So I actually have never personally seen this card play, but when I read it from the Lost Thunder set, it's pretty cool. So you can only use this card if one of your psychic Pokemon was knocked out during your opponent's last turn, either by damage or an effective attack or anything like that. Your opponent reveals their hand. Choose 2 cards you find there, and your opponent shuffles them back into their deck. So there's a quick way to kind of control what your opponent has going on. You choose 2 cards from their hand. Maybe this card would be great with Honchkrow GX, especially using Unfair GX to discard 2 cards from their hand, or maybe there's some other psychic type control cards that you could play with this card. Nita. So it's a really weird kind of card. You could put an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon on top of their deck. It's a great way to kind of stop them from playing cards, especially if you use this with Wondrous Labyrinth. I know this is used as more of a way to accelerate energies if you play the rest of the Hat Trick Girls, if you look at all of these cards that combo with each other. But you got to make sure that your opponent's active Pokemon is a basic Pokemon. Now, in a basic kind of defined metagame, Nita does seem like it can see some use, especially in a control deck, so keep it in mind. It might be the best way to control your opponent's top decks because you do put it on top of their deck every single turn. So that's our list for today of trainer cards that you can use to control what your opponent's doing or stop them from doing certain functions. Kind of a shorter list than the Pokemon. I thought it'd be a little bit longer, but we are in a new format and we only have limited sets between Ultra Prism and Unbroken Bonds. As soon as Unified Minds and other sets are released, I will be looking to add to this list in the future. So maybe we'll do a continuation video later on, but there are going to be other videos in this segment that include other kind of specific function cards. So be sure to keep on the lookout for those, your eyes peeled. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this content, be sure to like and subscribe to the Rare Candy channel. We really do enjoy making these videos, and we hope that it's really helpful, especially this series, to kind of build decks in this new format, or at least kind of figure out exactly what cards do. If you really like our channel, consider supporting our channel by becoming a patron at patreon.com/rarecandytcg. It would really help us out in coming up with some necessary equipment to improve the production quality of our videos, make more videos, hire on new staff, everything that you can do, anything that would make our channel better. We truly appreciate it. That being said, I had a blast making this video and searching through all these different cards. I hope when I'm playing Pokemon that I don't see any of these cards played against me, but knowing how control decks work in the Pokemon TCG, I'm 100% assured that I will see some of these cards against me. Maybe I'll even play some of these cards in the future. So that being said, I'm Zach Lesage. You can follow me on Twitter at ZLesagePokemon to follow me on my Pokemon journey as I try to become one of the best Pokemon players in the world. That's it for today, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Have a great one. Bye.